Well, good evening and welcome to those of you that are joining us live, and to those of you that will not be able to join us live, but will hopefully have a chance to watch this video recorded at a later date on our YouTube channel. My name is Michael Gault. I come to you on behalf of the Eminent Domain Practice Group at Bell Carrington, Price and Gregg. Our eminent domain team at Bell Carrington is a regional team of lawyers that represents landowners that are impacted by eminent domain cases throughout the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. But I'm pleased to be here with you today to talk specifically about the North Carolina Highway 343 improvements. These improvements along 343 are some that all of you that live or work in the area that may have heard about our firm through a postcard or through a mailer, you know about this project. You've likely been hearing about it since the first public meeting in October of last year. And so I won't bore you with the details, as you're probably familiar with most of them, but by way of a few highlights, this project is a project that has been proposed by the NCDOT to improve Highway 343 from just east of US 158 in Camden out east toward the community of Shiloh. And the stated purpose is just to improve the safety and the mobility along this stretch of highway. In doing so, the DOT prepares and they're going to resurface some existing roadways. They want to provide 11-foot wide travel lanes along with 4-foot paved shoulders for the length of this project along 343. And they want to do some intersection improvements along Seymour Drive, Ivy Neck Road, South Mill Dam Road, some places that you're all familiar with and that you all pass by every day. And when we welcome and we open safety improvements of highway projects. But in order to do so, as many of you are aware, the Highway Department or the Department of Transportation needs to acquire property from landowners, private property from landowners. And in order to do so, they're going to use the governmental power or the governmental ability of eminent domain. Eminent domain is a legal term that means that the government has the ability to take private property for a public purpose. And without fail, across all transportation roadway improvement projects like this, the courts have said that these types of projects are a public purpose. And so the government generally has the ability to take the property that they need to affect these improvements. Now, what that means for some of you landowners along the stretch of this highway that's being impacted and improved, it means that some of you will lose some property. It is impossible to say in this public forum in a group setting what each of the impacts will look like to each of you individually, because the impacts will vary so drastically. Fortunately, at Bell Carrington, we have some software that allows us in real time, while we're on the phone together, to pull up your property and to be able to go over the specific impact to your parcel and to tell you what we think that may look like and to be able to give you some advice through it. But in the meantime, we want to just talk generally about your rights as a landowner. You know, the government certainly has rights. They have the right to eminent domain, but you too have rights as a landowner. And among the most important of those is the right to just compensation. And that means that even though the government can likely take your property to complete road projects like this one, they have to compensate you fairly and adequately for what they're taking from you. Now, determining what just compensation is on any particular parcel is not easy. If it were a mathematical formula, we could all plug it into a software or into a calculator and be able to give you a number. But it's not that simple. There are many different intricacies and damages and valuations that need to go into making sure that your rights as a landowner are protected, and that ultimately, at the end of the day, after you sign all of the documents and the DOT moves forward with the construction of this project, you want to make sure that your rights are protected, that you've received the compensation that you're owed, and that your property value is protected the same way in the after this project is completed, the way that it is today. How do we do that? Well, fortunately, our team at Bell Carrington is filled with lawyers who have eminent domain experience. We work these types of cases on behalf of landowners across our region, across the Southeast, regularly. For some of us, this is all that we do. And so we're familiar with the process. We know the procedure. We know the terminology. We work with the folks that are going to be in charge of this project on behalf of the government day in and day out. And so it gives us a level of familiarity and a level of comfort that we can then pass on to you to let you know that you're in good hands, that you're with somebody who knows the process. Because frankly, if you're a landowner who receives a phone call or a knock at the door one day randomly from a representative of the government saying, hey, we're going to take some of your property to complete this road project, that can be overwhelming. If you don't have any experience with eminent domain projects like this, you may oftentimes be rushed into thinking that you're getting a good deal. You might be pressured into signing something that maybe you shouldn't. And so that's where a second set of eyes from our team or someone like us might help you ultimately make sure that you receive just compensation at the end of the day. I mentioned earlier calling us for those consultations so that we can look through our proprietary software to let you know what your impacts may be. Well, at Bell Carrington, with our eminent domain practice group specifically, our initial consultations are always free and certainly always no obligation. We welcome you to call us individually so that we can have a one-on-one conversation to tell you what those impacts may look like to your property. And even more importantly, what we think the impact may be worth. We're oftentimes able to get a rough idea based on our software, but even if not, we can give you a few things to look for and explain how the process may work if you choose to work with us. Secondly, oftentimes landowners, especially in our practice areas, and I certainly understand, sometimes they're hesitant to call lawyers. They think about sometimes exorbitant attorney's fees, and they wonder if the decision to call a lawyer will ultimately cost them more than they may receive from the government through an impact or through a taking like this. Fortunately, in eminent domain cases at Bell Carrington, that's never the case. We never require upfront attorney's fees or out-of-pocket expenses. There will never be a retainer required on behalf of a landowner. And instead, we operate on what's known as a contingency fee basis, which means that our fee is ultimately a percentage of the amount recovered from the state or from the agency, in this case, the North Carolina Department of Transportation. More specifically, it means that unless we're successful in increasing the offer that you receive from the NCDOT over and above their initial amount, then we don't receive any money. Our fee is a percentage of the increase over and above what you are initially offered. And so oftentimes it's viewed as a win-win situation for landowners from the aspect of looking at it purely from attorney's fees standpoint. You're not going to have to come out of pocket. You don't have to worry about losing money in this deal. We're only successful if you are successful when it comes to making sure that the property value and your rights as a landowner are ultimately protected. Long story short, and to recap this project, I know that this is a rural area. I know that this particular stretch of Highway 343 is largely farmland, but I know that many of you live directly along 343, along the frontage that's going to be impacted. And so don't think that just because this is a residential property, a residential impact, not very many commercial or industrial facilities along this stretch of the highway, those residential impacts still matter. Sometimes to the landowner, they matter more because this is the front yard of your home, not the front parking lot of your business. And we recognize that, and we're happy to work with any of you, be this farmland, commercial property, or residential property, to make sure that ultimately at the end of the day, although this project is going to be completed, we also want to make sure that your right to just compensation is also protected. We're going to post in the description of this video email for a couple of folks in our team that can help landowners impacted in North Carolina. We're also going to post a phone number where you can reach us directly. And again, we're standing by. Our team is ready to speak with you, to provide you with that one-on-one in-depth consultation and conversation to see what questions you may have. We'll be able to answer most of those during that initial call. And then we can explain the process in more depth to you, pull up your property in real time, tell you what your impact looks like, and hopefully develop a relationship that will allow us to work with you throughout the pendency of this project. Finally, our information tells us that right-of-way acquisition, which is the time when someone may contact you, was scheduled to start in the summer of 2024, this past summer. We're now moving into the fall of 2024, And I wouldn't be surprised to hear from some of you that you've already been contacted. But certainly, the DOT is dealing with some widespread devastation in the western part of North Carolina, near where I'm based. And that may impact the timeline for acquisition on some of these projects. And so, if we go through the remainder of the fall into the winter, even into the early part of next year, January or February of 2025, without hearing from someone, don't be concerned. That's just the nature of projects like this. Sometimes they're pushed back, but our indications are that this project is funded and will go forward, and we would like to help you, or at least like the opportunity to speak with you about how we can help you in the future. So again, Michael Gault on behalf of Bell Carrington, our eminent domain team, standing by, and we appreciate you joining us either tonight live or later on in a recording. Thank you.